Princess Lynaxa of the Crimson Throne stood before the Council of Elders, her navy blue skin seeming to darken with barely contained fury. Her golden eyes blazed as High Counselor Thuron read her sentence. For your refusal to accept the arranged union with Prince Calax of the Northern Reaches, and for your continued defiance of the Council's authority, you are hereby exiled to the human colony on Terra 7. You will remain there for no less than one solar cycle, where perhaps their primitive ways will teach you the humility you lack. The council chamber erupted in whispers. Exile to a human world was considered the ultimate disgrace for Valorian royalty. Humans were seen as little more than clever animals. Resourceful, yes, but lacking the telepathic gifts and advanced culture of the Valorian Empire. Lynaxa's blonde hair, an unusual trait that marked her as different even among her own people, fell across her shoulders as she lifted her chin defiantly. I accept this exile gladly if it means another year of freedom from a loveless political arrangement. You will be assigned to live with a human family, Thuron continued, his voice dripping with disdain. Integration into their society is mandatory. Perhaps living among lesser beings will remind you of your duties to your superior bloodline. As guards escorted her from the chamber, Lynaxa's mother, the queen, reached out telepathically. My daughter, I'm sorry. I couldn't stop them. Don't be, mother, Lynaxa responded through their mental link. I'd rather spend a year among honest primitives than a lifetime with that arrogant prince. The journey to Terra 7 took 3 days aboard a supply vessel. Lynaxa watched through the viewport as her homeworld of Valoria Prime grew smaller, its 3 moons fading into the star field. She felt no sadness, only curiosity about what awaited her. Terra 7 was an agricultural colony world, settled by humans 2 generations prior. As the shuttle descended through clouds, Lynaxa saw endless fields of golden grain, simple settlements, and humans working the land with a dedication that surprised her. The shuttle landed in a small town called Riverdale. As the doors opened, a human male stepped forward. He was tall, with sun-darkened skin and kind brown eyes. He wore simple farmer's clothes, but carried himself with quiet dignity. "Princess Lynaxa?" he asked, his voice warm. "I'm Marcus Chen. Welcome to our home." Marcus's farmhouse was nothing like the crystalline palace Lynaxa had grown up in, but it possessed a warmth she'd never experienced. The wooden structure sat on 200 acres of wheat fields, with a vegetable garden his late wife had planted still thriving behind the house. "I know this isn't what you're used to," Marcus said, showing her to a simple bedroom. "But you're welcome here, no judgment, no conditions." Lynaxa examined the room, a bed with a handmade quilt, a wooden dresser, curtains that fluttered in the evening breeze. "Why did you agree to house an exile?" Marcus smiled. "Because the request came with a generous stipend? No, truthfully, I lost my wife Sarah 2 years ago to a fever. This house has been too quiet since. My daughter Emma is away at university on Earth. I thought, maybe we could both use the company." Over the following weeks, Lynaxa discovered that human primitiveness was largely Valorian propaganda. Marcus woke before dawn, worked the fields with machinery he maintained himself, and spent evenings reading, everything from agricultural journals to ancient Earth poetry. "How do you decide what to plant?" Lynaxa asked one evening, watching him review crop rotations. "You listen to the land," Marcus explained. "Each field tells you what it needs. The soil, the weather patterns, the way water flows, it all speaks to you if you pay attention. It reminded her of Valorian telepathy, but rooted in observation rather than psychic ability. She began joining him in the fields, learning to drive the harvester, to test soil composition, to read weather patterns in the clouds. Marcus never asked about her exile, never pried into Valorian politics. Instead, he shared stories of his wife, of building this farm from nothing, of raising Emma alone after Sarah's death. "Don't you feel angry?" Linaxa asked one night over dinner. "That the universe took her from you?" "I did for a long time," Marcus admitted. "But anger is a heavy thing to carry. Sarah wouldn't want me buried under it. She'd want me to keep living, to find joy where I can." He paused. "Is that why you refused the arranged marriage? Because you wanted to choose your own joy?" Linaxa set down her fork, surprised by his insight. "I wanted to choose my own life. Is that so wrong?" "Not even a little bit," Marcus said softly. That night, Linaxa realized she was communicating with Marcus in ways she'd never connected with anyone on Valoria. Without telepathy, humans had developed something else. A deep attention to body language, tone, the unsaid things that lived in silence between words. She found herself wanting to stay up later each evening, talking with Marcus by the fireplace, learning about Earth history, sharing stories of Valoria that she'd never told anyone. For the first time in her life, Linaxa felt truly seen, not as a princess, not as a political pawn, but as herself. 3 months into her exile, Linaxa admitted to herself what her heart had known for weeks. She was falling in love with Marcus Chen. It happened in small moments. The way he brought her tea each morning, remembering she preferred it with honey. How he'd created a small greenhouse so she could grow Valorian flowers from seeds she'd brought. The patient way he taught her to cook human food, laughing when she accidentally used salt instead of sugar in cookies. "You're doing that on purpose now?" he accused, grinning as she presented another batch of inedible creations. "Maybe I just like watching you try to eat them politely," she teased back. But it was more than kindness. Marcus challenged her. When she complained about Valorian politics, he asked hard questions. "If you were queen instead of your mother, what would you change?" When she spoke dismissively of humans, he called her on it. "We might not be telepathic, Linaxa, but we're not primitive, just different." One evening, during a thunderstorm that knocked out power, they sat by candlelight. Lightning illuminated Marcus's face as he read poetry aloud, ancient verses by someone named Neruda. "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees," he read, and Linaxa felt her heart's, Valorians had too, beat faster. "Marcus," she said quietly, "may I try something?" At his nod, she placed her hand over his heart. Valorian touch could convey emotions even without full telepathy. She let him feel what she felt, the growing affection, the sense of home she'd found here, the way he'd become essential to her happiness. Marcus's eyes widened. "Linaxa, I feel it, I feel you." He covered her hand with his own. "I've been fighting this for weeks. You're a princess, I'm a farmer. You have to return home in 9 months. What if I don't want to?" The words escaped before she could stop them. "Your people exiled you to teach you a lesson. Do you think they'd accept you choosing to stay with a human?" She had no answer. They both knew the Valorian Council would see it as the ultimate humiliation, their princess choosing a human partner. But that night, as the storm raged outside, they stopped fighting what had grown between them. Marcus kissed her gently, reverently, as if she were made of starlight. Linaxa pulled him closer, tired of denying what her hearts wanted. Their relationship deepened through the following months. They worked the fields together, cooked meals side by side, and spent nights wrapped in each other's arms, talking until dawn. Marcus taught her to dance to old earth music. Linaxa showed him meditation techniques that could simulate the Valorian mental connection. They both knew it couldn't last. In 6 months, her exile would end, and she'd be summoned home. But for now, they chose to live in the present, stealing whatever happiness they could before reality intervened. 5 months into her exile, Linax awoke feeling different. Her Valorian biology manifested pregnancy symptoms quickly, heightened senses, a subtle glow to her navy skin, and overwhelming protectiveness toward the life growing inside her. She told Marcus that evening as they watched the sunset from the porch. "I'm carrying your child," she said simply. Marcus went very still. Then he turned to her, eyes bright with tears. "Linaxa, I didn't think it was possible." "Valorian and human genetics are more compatible than my people like to admit," she finished. "There have been hybrids before, though the Council erases them from history. They view it as contamination of the bloodline." Marcus pulled her close. "What do we do?" "I don't know," she admitted. "In 1 month they'll summon me home if I return pregnant with a human's child." She couldn't finish the sentence. The options were all terrible. She could claim the child was fully Valorian, but the baby would show human features. She could refuse to return, but that would mean permanent exile, being declared dead to her people. She could try to hide the pregnancy, but Valorian medical scans would detect it immediately. "We could run," Marcus suggested. "There are colonies on the outer rim where nobody asks questions. I could sell the farm." "No," Linax's voice was firm. "You built this life. I won't let you abandon it." They spent weeks in anguished discussion. But as Linax's belly swelled with their child, something changed in her. The fierce protectiveness she felt wasn't just biological, it was a fundamental shift in her priorities. "I've spent my whole life being told what I should want," she told Marcus one night. "Who I should marry, how I should behave, what would bring honor to the royal house. But this child, our child, deserves parents who chose each other, who chose love." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. If you want to fight the Council, we fight together. If you want to disappear to the outer rim, I'll pack tonight. If you need to return to Valoria—" "I'm going back," Linaxa said. "But not in shame, not as a failure who learned humility. I'm going back as a woman who found something more valuable than any throne, a real partnership, real love, and a family I chose." The summons came a week later. The Council demanded her immediate return to Valoria Prime for debriefing and reintegration. As Linaxa boarded the shuttle, Marcus held her tightly. "Come back to me," he whispered. "Nothing in this universe could stop me," she promised. She placed his hand on her belly where their child grew, a living testament to love transcending species, culture, and prejudice. "We're coming back, both of us." The return journey felt longer than the first. Linaxa spent the 3 days preparing her arguments, anticipating every objection the Council would raise. She practiced staying calm, channeling the patience Marcus had taught her. When the shuttle docked at Valoria Prime's royal spaceport, an armed escort awaited her. They led her directly to the Council chamber, allowing no time to see her mother privately or prepare further. Linaxa stood before the Council of Elders once again, but this time she felt no fear. Her pregnancy was now visible, even beneath her formal robes. The Council chamber filled with shocked gasps as she entered. High Counselor Thuron's face contorted with rage. You dare return to us in this condition, carrying the offspring of a human. I carry the child of the man I love, Linaxa said clearly. Marcus Chen, a man of more honor and wisdom than anyone in this chamber. You were sent to learn humility, Thuron thundered. Instead, you've disgraced the royal bloodline. I learned something far more valuable, Linaxa responded. I learned that our beliefs about humans are built on arrogance and lies. They're not primitive, they've simply chosen different paths to wisdom. Marcus understands loyalty, sacrifice, and love better than Prince Kallax ever could. Counselor Verath, one of the oldest members, spoke up. Princess, do you understand what you're asking us to accept? A half-breed heir? It's unprecedented. It violates centuries of tradition. Then perhaps it's time our traditions evolved, Linaxa said. I've lived among humans. I've seen their capacity for innovation, their resilience, their ability to build communities based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical power. These are strengths we've lost in our rigid adherence to purity. Her mother, the queen, spoke for the first time. Linaxa, you don't understand what you've done. The council will demand you renounce the child, claim it was forced upon you. I will do no such thing. Linax's voice rang through the chamber. I claim this child proudly, and I claim my right as heir to challenge the outdated laws that would shame me for choosing love. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted for her arrest, her disinheritance, her permanent exile. But Linaxa stood firm, one hand protective over her belly. If you exile me again, I go gladly back to Marcus, she declared. But know this, I will raise our child to be a bridge between our peoples. This baby represents what we could become if we let go of our prejudice. Half Valorian, half human, and carrying the best of both worlds. Thuron rose from his seat. You speak of bridges, but you've burned yours to ash. No Valorian will accept a mongrel as heir to the Crimson Throne. You've destroyed your future for a momentary infatuation with a human farmer. He's not just a farmer, Linaxa said quietly. He's the man who taught me that true nobility isn't about bloodlines or telepathic power. It's about how you treat others, how you face adversity, how you build something meaningful with your life. Marcus has more nobility in one hand than Kallax has in his entire being. The queen rose from her throne, silencing the chamber with the gesture. Enough! She descended the steps to stand before her daughter. For a long moment they locked eyes. Then the queen placed her hand over Linax's belly and reached out telepathically. I feel the child's mind, strong, bright, carrying both our gifts and human resilience. Linax's eyes widened. Her mother had always been bound by council tradition, never defying their decrees. But now, in this intimate telepathic space, she felt her mother's true feelings, pride, wonder, and a fierce protectiveness toward her grandchild. Aloud, the queen said, "The law states that heirs must marry for the benefit of the empire. My daughter has done so, creating an alliance with humanity that could reshape our future. I acknowledge this child as my grandchild and heir to the throne." The council exploded in protest, but the queen raised her hand for silence. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. For too long, we've isolated ourselves, believing our telepathic gifts made us superior. But gifts mean nothing without wisdom to guide them. My daughter has shown courage that none of you possess, the courage to see beyond our prejudices and forge a new path. She turned to Thuron with steel in her voice. You sent her to learn humility among primitives. She learned something far more valuable. That connection transcends biology. That love is a choice requiring more bravery than arranged duty, and that our empire's future depends on opening our minds, not closing them further. Your Majesty, you cannot seriously, Varath began. I can and I will, the Queen cut him off. My daughter will return to Terra 7 to her chosen partner. When this child is born, both parents will be welcomed as honored members of the royal family. Marcus Chen will be recognized as prince consort, and their child will be raised knowing both cultures. This is madness, Thuron shouted. The people will never accept. The people will accept what their queen decrees, she said firmly. And if this council cannot support the future I envision for our empire, one of cooperation with humanity rather than isolation, then perhaps it's time for new counselors who can. The threat hung in the air. The queen rarely exercised her absolute power, preferring to work with the council. But when she did, no one could overrule her. Thuron sat down, defeated. Other counselors whispered among themselves, some scandalized, others thoughtful. The queen turned back to Linaxa and spoke softly. I should have fought for you before. I let them send you away because I thought obedience to tradition mattered more than your happiness. I was wrong. Linaxa felt tears on her cheeks. Mother, go back to him, the queen said. Raise your child in love, and when you're ready, come home, all three of you. I want to know this Marcus Chen who captured my daughter's heart and taught her such wisdom. 3 months later, Linaxa gave birth on Terra 7, with Marcus beside her and the best Valorian doctors her mother had sent. The delivery was challenging. Hybrid births were unpredictable, but both mother and baby emerged healthy. The baby girl had Marcus's warm brown eyes and Linax's navy blue skin, with delicate blonde hair that curled softly around her tiny head. Her fingers were slightly longer than a full human's, and when she cried, both the Valorian doctors and Marcus swore they felt a faint telepathic pulse. She's perfect, Marcus whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. Linaxa watched him, her heart so full she thought they might burst. We should name her. They discussed names for weeks. Valorian names felt too alien to Marcus, human names too foreign to Linaxa, but they'd finally found one that bridged both worlds. Sira, Linaxa said. It means bridge in both Valorian and Mandarin. Marcus smiled through his tears. Sira Chen, our little bridge. The news of Sira's birth spread across both Valorian and human territories. Reactions were mixed. Some Valorians denounced it as the death of their pure bloodline, while others saw it as a hopeful sign of unity. Among humans, most were merely curious about the first confirmed human Valorian hybrid. When Sira was 3 months old, the Queen herself came to Terra 7, accompanied by a small delegation. She'd never left Valoria Prime before. It was unprecedented for a reigning monarch to travel to a human colony. Marcus had been terrified, spending days preparing the farmhouse for royal visitors. Linaxa had laughed at his nerves. She's my mother, Marcus. She'll love you because I love you. But when the Queen's shuttle landed in the wheat field behind the house, even Linaxa felt anxious. The Queen emerged in simple traveling robes rather than her ceremonial regalia. She approached the porch where Marcus stood holding Sira with Linaxa at his side. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the Queen's eyes fell on Sira and her expression softened completely. "May I?" she asked quietly. Marcus carefully transferred Sira into her grandmother's arms. The queen cradled the baby, and Linaxa felt the telepathic connection form, her mother reaching out to Sira's developing mind. "Oh," the queen breathed. "She's extraordinary. I can feel both lineages in her thoughts, the structured telepathy of our people and something else, an adaptability, a creativity that's purely human." She looked up at Marcus with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for loving my daughter and for giving me this precious grandchild." Marcus, never one for formality, simply said, "Thank you for giving her the freedom to choose me." That evening they sat together in the farmhouse. A Valorian queen, a human farmer, a princess who defied tradition, and a baby who embodied hope for a different future. The queen tried Marcus's cooking and declared it surprisingly sophisticated. Marcus showed her the farm, explaining crop rotation and sustainable agriculture. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed a sharp mind beneath the royal bearing. "I've been queen for 40 years," she told them as the sun set. "I've maintained tradition, preserved our ways, protected our people from outside influence. But watching you three together, I wonder if I've been protecting us from the wrong things. Perhaps we needed protection from our own isolation, our own arrogance." Linaxa reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "It's not too late to change." "No," the queen agreed. "It's not." Before she left, the queen made a formal proclamation. Marcus Chen was recognized as Prince Consort of the Valorian Empire. Sira was acknowledged as third in line for the Crimson Throne. And most significantly, the Queen announced a new initiative, cultural exchange programs between Valoria and human colonies, starting with educational exchanges and diplomatic cooperation. Not everyone supported these changes. High Counselor Thuron resigned in protest, along with several other traditionalists. But younger Valorians, especially those who'd secretly wondered about the wider galaxy, embraced the opportunity. Linaxa and Marcus split their time between Terra 7 and Valoria Prime. Sira grew up running through wheat fields and crystal palaces with equal joy. She learned to read weather patterns and telepathic signatures, to drive a harvester and navigate court politics. When Sira was 5, Linaxa made another controversial decision. She opened a school on Valoria Prime specifically for hybrid children. It turned out there had been more human-Valorian relationships than anyone admitted, but the families had hidden their children or fled to the outer rim. Now they began to return, tentatively at first, then in greater numbers. The school became a symbol of the changing empire. Hybrid children learned both cultures, both languages, both ways of understanding the universe. They developed unique abilities, telepathy enhanced by human creativity, human resilience strengthened by Valorian mental discipline. Marcus adapted to his role as Prince Consort with the same quiet dignity he'd brought to farming. He never pretended to be Valorian, never abandoned his human roots. Instead, he showed the court that strength came in many forms, that wisdom didn't require telepathy, and that sometimes the most revolutionary act was simply being authentically yourself. Years later, when historians looked back on this period, they marked it as the beginning of the Great Convergence, the era when Valorian and human civilizations began to truly merge, creating something richer than either culture alone. But for Linaxa, the story was simpler. She'd been exiled to learn humility, to understand her place in the grand hierarchy of species and bloodlines. Instead, she'd learned that love was the only hierarchy that mattered, and it placed a farmer and a princess on exactly equal ground. She'd been sent away as punishment and returned carrying an heir, not just to a throne, but to a better future. And as she watched Marcus teach Sira to plant seeds in the garden while explaining the telepathic communication of root systems, Lynaxa knew she'd made the right choice. The council had tried to teach her a lesson. They'd succeeded, just not the one they'd intended. She'd learned that home wasn't a place or a bloodline. It was wherever your hearts, both of them, felt truly at peace. And for her, that was here in a simple farmhouse on Terra 7, with soil under her nails and the laughter of her family filling the air. The exile had ended. The real life had just begun.